Welcome back to Gaming. In today's video, we're going to go over my top choices for the Godforge minigame or Godforge Quests. Okay, but before we get into my top three for the different categories of the stuff you can choose, I made this little quick kind of guide here, kind of how you just should think of the different types. You know, defenders are buffers. They usually give you some type of defense. Now, these aren't hard, fast rules. They do other stuff as well, but these are just kind of the general idea if you didn't really want to get into the nitty gritty and just kind of looking for a hierarchy of character type within Godforge Quest. You know, I'd say pick a defender first if you get one, an invoker second, so on and so forth. Right now, I actually have a disruptor. I would prefer an invoker or a defender, but you know, can't always get that. And like I said, you know, invoker is kind of a buffer. They empower you. Disruptors, think of them as the debuffers. Then brawlers, damage. Usually they have some type of a skill that can kind of keep them going, some type of self-sustain. They also usually have sort of some debuffs going on. And then slayers, damage. They'll often have, you know, some type of attack up or something too. And also, you know, defenders usually have shields. Some invokers do, but they're often much smaller. So just think of this, you know, defender first, invoker second. If you pull one, I don't think I've really seen a bad defender or invoker. And in fact, I might make a tier list for just those two categories because of how good all those champs seem to be. Not that if you get something down here, you get a bad champ by any means. You know, I was talking to Ragewood once about ideas for videos, and, you know, it was kind of feeling like a chore. You know, I wasn't having fun. And he said, you know, remember, this is a game. It's supposed to be fun, so don't stress yourself out. So I did. I kind of just took a break. I didn't make as many videos. Take that same approach with this. This is just free stuff. There's no real wrong choices. You know, I see all these videos like, don't make this mistake, don't make that mistake. Take that as general advice. Even if you want to go against it because you think it's going to be fun, go ahead and do that. Choose what you want. You know, this is a long-term thing. Like, it's not going to be like a make or break thing if you choose the wrong thing for your account. So just have fun. That's my advice as well. Anyways, let's get to weapons first. All right, number one here is Excalibur. As you can see, increased damage inflicted by allies for each buff on them when placed by this hero. This is the range. Also, I'll put a link down below. Some of this stuff is clipped from one of my cluster mates. I think it's Timb is how he pronounces his name. It's Timb. I'm thinking of it kind of like Timberlands, you know, Tim's. So I'll put a link down below. There's a bunch of good information on there. I think he pretty much has all the heroes that we've seen so far on there. I haven't gone through everything, but either way. But yeah, this is the number one choice. This is actually what I have right now. And actually some related advice to weapons. Well, two things real quick I forgot to mention at the beginning. One, this has been extended to February 20th. So normally this thing would be over, I think, in about 2 weeks by the time I get this video out. Which also, I've had to redo my top 3 a bunch of times because they keep releasing more information. But if you haven't started, start now. You're still going to finish. Even if you play inefficiently, like, you're going to finish. Yeah, you missed out on that 5,000 free Aether and, you know, those extra summons for New Year's. But I can almost guarantee the last day or two, they're going to do something. Maybe extra summons or more Ether or something, you know, just... That's in Simon's nature, man. He wants people to have fun. He doesn't want them to feel like they missed out or felt cheated or anything, you know? So start now. You're going to finish. It's going to be good stuff. And related to that, what I was going to say is I would almost suggest when you get the Aether, if you can hold off and wait to get the portrait last, that's 5,000. Choose an imprint first because I'll have to look. But I believe the pool of legendary weapons, I don't have them all up here. I don't know why I did that. Is like 8 weapons. I've seen Excalibur plenty of times. So I can wait till the end to use my Aether to get that. But I didn't do that. I chose a weapon first. And as you'll see when we get to my imprints, two of the really good imprints I saw on there, I've seen multiple times, but I didn't have the Aether to do it because I chose the weapon. Now, the longest I went without seeing Excalibur was like 4 or 5 days. You're going to be able to get it if that's what you want, and that's what I suggest you should get. But you might not get that imprint because it's going to come around a lot more rare. But in fact, I did get one on my list, so I got kind of lucky. I actually got it today as I'm recording. Just the reset was like a couple hours ago. But anyways, kind of my general thinking too for these whole list with heroes and imprints is I'm trying to do imprints and heroes and weapons that are going to affect multiple champs because I think that's going to be better starting off. So maybe also think of my tier list kind of as a early and mid game tier list. Not that this stuff is going to suck in end game, but I think it is going to be more impactful in the early and mid game than maybe some other choices. Number 2 weapon is, I forget how you say this, Namasaru. Now, the reason I put this number 2, as you can see here, buffs placed on this hero are instantly removed, granting different percentages right there, depending on what you get, and grant a permanent damage increase of 5%. So, I don't always like to talk about this game in comparison to other games, but in this case, I'm thinking of a very specific example that will illustrate it. So if you have played Raid and you are familiar with Seer and what she does, essentially you put a bunch of buffs on your team and she strips them off and nukes people. Now obviously this is different, but I can see a way of building a team. You get a strong damage dealer and then you essentially buff the heck out of them using this, and they get to nuke the waves down with their ultimate. And I was trying to find an imprint from Alpha. I thought there was some type of imprint from Alpha where if somebody took, I don't remember if it was fatal damage or a certain kind of damage, but it would redirect it onto the hero with that imprint. So when this game goes live and I can look at everything again easier, I'm having an idea of how to build a team around this and still be able to protect the champ that has this weapon since its buffs will get stripped. Let me know down below if you remember any kind of imprint like that, where damage gets redirected or reduced or something based on an imprint. I can't remember what it is and I couldn't find it, so sorry if I'm being vague here, but that's why I'm putting this number 2, because I feel like there's gonna be a way to build a pretty powerful wave clear with this, which will help in obviously a ton of content. And then last is the Forge Fire. Reduces damage received by these percentages here. Does not receive damage per wave until this hero takes the first turn. So the only reason I put this third is because, assuming I'm understanding this correctly, this doesn't come into play until this hero takes a turn, which isn't necessarily bad, but it does limit it a little bit more than the other two. This doesn't say, well, I guess you do have to have the buff on them, so you have to take the turn as well. So I guess I just kind of crapped on my own point there. Well, whatever. I'm sticking with it though. But either way, these are good. You're going to be able to get Excalibur. You're going to be able to get whatever weapon you want just because the pool is so small. Anyways, let's get to, imprints next. Actually, I should have done heroes first, but whatever. Maybe we'll do heroes now. All right, let's take a look at the heroes. At number 1, I have Svarog, and number 2, I have Viviana. And the reason I'm showing these at the same time is because I actually think as a standalone character, Viviana is better. So then why do I have Svarog as number 1? Well, as I said, this list is kind of in early game, mid game. And Viviana is great. She has great skills, does a cleanse of everyone and everything under ultimate, I believe. Let me pull that up real quick before I am lying to you. Yes, removes all disables from all allies, also removes all debuffs. That's what I thought. Okay. So why is she number 2 then? You ask yourself. Well, because I'm kind of thinking of the alpha. You know, we progressed in the alpha so quickly and got better gear and were able to ascend and awaken champions so much quicker than we're going to be able to in the real game. And I just felt like the invokers are a bit more stat hungry than defenders in terms of early usage. I just feel like it's going to be harder to fully utilize her until maybe your late early game, like you really have some resources to put into her and build her up. And Svarog, let me pull it up real quick in the background. His basic ability has blunt 2. So that's an immediate damage reduction every time he goes, which is great. Now his ultimate has a shield. It's 250% defense. That's pretty good now. They actually nerfed Heimdall's. His was 400, I believe, in the alpha, and now it's 300. Not that Heimdall still isn't a great character, but his shield is only going to be a little bit better than Svarog's now. And then for his, core ability, he attacks all enemies and has a chance to place attack down 2. So he has good damage reduction on 2 of his skills, shields you up on another one, and boosts you up with that resistance up and the defense up. Oh, and then on his core skill, he also has protect 2. So because of that, I think he's going to be great at keeping you alive and reducing damage of the enemy. So number 3 is going to be Athena. Why is it Athena, you ask? Well, because as far as I can tell right now, she has the largest shield that we've seen out of anyone since they reduced Heimdall. She still has that 400% shield. She has other great skills as well, but she's on there just for that 400% shield. That is the biggest shield, and it's not even on her ultimate. So you don't have to get to her ultimate, which is semi-expensive. It's 1,600. You start with 300, and then you can get this to a 3-turn cooldown, and damage inflicted to allies is reduced by 5%, stacking up to 3 times. That is the best shield skill period I've seen so far, because it's going to reduce your damage and it has the highest percentage of defense. Her basic is pretty good too. Put defense up 2 on all allies for 1 turn. The 1 turn, honestly, not that great, but it's something. That big shield kind of makes up for that. And then her ultimate seems like it's just okay when you look at it at first glance, but it says increases the damage of the next ultimate by 3% each time an ally is attacked under shield. And it doesn't say, how many times that can happen. So with that 400% shield, it's going to be staying up a while. That's a pretty powerful combo there. So that's why she's number 3 for me. And again, like I said, I think I'm going to have to make a list of invokers and defenders because they're just so great. There's another invoker, I can't remember her name right now, but she on her core has removed 2 debuffs and disables, and then her ultimate is a revive with some other stuff on it. So that's another great choice. I can't remember her name, and like I said, Heimdall is still good. Isis is still good. They nerfed her a bit because her first skill requires accuracy now, it looks like. Quetzalcoatl is still good. Somebody else I saw, I can't remember. It looks like they tied Quetzalcoatl now for maybe speed lead, but that might have been an arena now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, there's still plenty of great champs. Who else did I have on there? Oh, Anu. He had Phoenix. I think he's the only defender we've seen that had Phoenix on it, if I'm remembering that correctly as well. So yeah, there's just tons of great choices. So I'll try and get that list out before the end of the alpha. But again, like I said earlier, there's no bad choices. It's free stuff for the start of the game. Oh yeah, here we got Imprints. Into me, T-Long, Pillar of the Sky is number 1. And again, this is kind of playing into the theme that you're choosing, Excalibur, and you got somebody who's going to do a shield. But it has to be a pretty good shield. For example, Isis, I think her shield is like 20% defense. That's not nothing, but that's nothing also compared to what we've seen from Athena, Heimdall, and Farvog. Their shields are just, will literally, be a magnitude bigger at 200%. So there you go. But anyways, since this affects multiple champions and it's an eternal character, that's why I put it number 1. Allies under shield deal 10% increased damage and receive 10% decreased damage. So can you imagine if you had this using Athena with that 400% shield, and then also she stacks that damage reduction up to 3 times, which would be 15%. That'd be a pretty powerful combo for damage reduction. Also, let me say this about imprints real quick when we start the game. With these legendary imprints, I would be very, very careful about just slapping them on a weapon at the start of the game, because as far as we know right now, there is no way to get these back. They did talk about it in one of the podcasts, and I would say they should implement that system. Simon kind of asked, what do you think? What would be a way to do it? I forget who it was, said, maybe make some type of currency for it. I'm not in favor of that. Too many currencies. It just gets kind of annoying to look at. You have all those different ones that like barely look different, have different names. That I think that's a bad idea. Keep the currency stuff simple. I would say allow us to re-extract it, have it cost a certain gold cost. You can make it high, so you have to feel it that way. Maybe make it also cost some god steel, because you're sort of re-extracting it. And then maybe even put a cooldown on it. I don't know what it would be, like 1 a day, 1 a week, I don't know. And then you lose the weapon as well. And if that sounds like a lot, you kind of got to step into your, you're making the game shoes. What am I trying to say? Developer shoes. You can't just, you think you want everything to be easy and free and blah, blah, blah. But then if there's no real consequence of choice, you'll just kind of mindlessly start doing things every day. Swap this to that, do that to that. It won't become fun. It'll just become a simulation. Honestly, not that much different than putting numbers into a spreadsheet, in my opinion. So make it cost something, not a different currency. Just use God Steel, I think. And, a gold cost. And then we lose the weapon, but we get the imprint back. Anyways, that was kind of a tangent there. Let's get to number 2, which is actually what I just got today. Future Sight. When an enemy receives a buff, has a 50% chance to reduce its duration by 1 turn. If the enemy receives a debuff, has a 50% chance to increase the duration of 1 turn. Again, this can affect multiple characters. You only need it on 1 character, but it can affect multiple enemies. Hence why I'm putting it at number 2. And then number 3, Sung Wukong, which I think everyone's pretty much familiar with at this point. Places immortal on this hero for 2 turns when receiving a fatal damage for the first time. Also has a 25% chance to join in an ally's attack. All that's good. I really like this has the 25% chance to join in on an ally's attack. That almost made me kind of move it up, because again, right, you have multiple people on the team, 25% chance. It's kind of like it's affecting multiple characters again. So, these two could honestly swap spots. But yeah, I think this is number 1 for me. All right, let me know down below your thoughts on this. Where do you disagree? Where do you agree? What are kind of your strategies going into early access? Again, I'll try to get Defenders and Invoker tier list out before this game ends. We do have about a month still. I know tons of people put out some good videos. I watched Rage Woods. Unbound Sage has been putting out some good stuff. Who else? I saw Charlemagne put out a tier list. I think yesterday or today. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet. DLDS did a good general video, kind of like I'm trying to do here. I'll also make a, I've been saving up my shards. Right now I have a Izanami, a disruptor. She's pretty good. Her passive honestly is kind of weak. It feels almost, I don't know, I want to say like good rare level. Simon did say in the video when he's talking about it that might get buffed. But other than that, she has a bunch of great debuffs on all of her skills. So I will definitely find use for her for quite a while when the game starts. This has been H-Lock. Thanks for watching. Bye.